When I think back on my 35 years in the construction industry, the one thing that stands out the most is that I haven't come across enough great leaders. I've run across quite a few, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of people that I've worked with in this industry when I was at a lower level in the industry, all the way up until where I am today, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But what I find is that most of us who are in the trades who came up through a skill and we got put into positions of leadership, we weren't given a lot of insight and training about how to do that. We were taught how to fill out a material requisition sheet, how to order tools, how to put some plans together, go to coordination meetings, things like this. But most of us, and hopefully you'll relate to this, most of us, we just kind of get thrown into it. We get promised that we're going to have help. We get promised we're going to have support. I think the intentions are always good. But, one of the things I think about is, what if you're surrounded by a bunch of people who also weren't trained, who are just getting by, who are also just sort of making it happen? They figured out their ways. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. So that's what I'm going to be talking about on this channel. Is I'm going to start by describing different tactics, different things I've learned along the way throughout. And I'm going to create videos, different subjects, communication, leadership qualities, things to do with professionalism. Just how do we interact with our clients? How do we interact with our crew members? Planning, organization, stress management. That's what this channel is going to be about. I'll give you a little bit about my background. My name is Jason McCarty, and I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm a licensed electrician by trade. I started when I was about 16 years old. I was in the summertime, and I after my sophomore year, and I went to work for an electrical contractor as a material handler. And basically, I was just a grunt. I would go to the shop, I would pick up some materials, or I'd pick up some tools, I'd drive them to job sites. Sometimes I'd drive to job sites and help clean up or do whatever needed to be done for that team. I did that for a couple summers. I got out of high school, wasn't sure what I was going to do, went out and tried a few different things and came back to, I think I'm interested in getting in the trades. So I applied for and was accepted into an electrical apprenticeship. I did that schooling and I did my trade time as an apprentice from 93 to 98. What happened next was I turned out in the fall in 98, and wasn't long after, about 30 days after, I was out on a job site just working as a journeyman. I was pretty happy with the opportunity to work as a journeyman after all those years as an apprentice. I was making a little bit more money and I didn't have to go to school anymore. So I was pretty happy that I was moving on to the next stage of my life. Well, the foreman of that job came to me and said, why don't you tomorrow head into the shop? They have an opportunity for you. And I didn't really know what they were talking about. Anyway, I go into the shop the next morning. I meet with the project manager and he says, hey, we got this new project and we think you'd be a good fit for going and managing it. And I went, well, what is it? It's a brand new grade school. It's going to be great. You're going to learn a lot. You'll learn more in the next year than you will in the next 5 years. Well, I was 27 at the time. And the first thing that went through my head is, why do I need to know that by 28? Maybe 32 is okay. Maybe I should progress into this thing. But they were insistent. So I went out and got started. What happened next was I got overwhelmed. I got run over by the general contractor, the other trades. I wasn't sure if I was even doing all the right things. It became very intimidating. It became very overwhelming. The stress just skyrocketed instantly because I was in a very uncomfortable position. Now, take one step back, the way it was described to me was someone will be there, someone will help you, not necessarily physically there, but you always have, support, and there were a lot of good people I'd met along the way. But the truth is, and I'll say it again, is that although the intentions are probably good, what happens next is usually the people don't follow up. They aren't right there with you. And we all struggle with that. So if you relate to this at all, I've been there and I've met many people and almost everyone has some similar story. I was asked to be a foreman at some point because I was producing, doing a good job for the company. Then I have this opportunity and then it was just figure it out. And a lot of struggles, a lot of pressure along the way. After about a couple of weeks, I got so overwhelmed that I decided one day I got up in the morning, I drove straight back to the shop, waited for that project manager to come in. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I've come to tell you that I think we're making a huge error here and that I don't think I'm suited for this yet. What if we had someone who was more suited to do it and I could stay with them and shadow them throughout the next year and learn how to run work through them? And then the answer was, this is the way we do it. This is the way the industry's always been. And even at 27, I thought to myself, that doesn't make much sense to me. I just went through an apprenticeship that was very structured and had curriculum and we learned and everyone has this opportunity to get pick up a lot of skills in 5 years that they'll then apply the rest of their career. And now we have zero as we go forward. So I even at 27, I thought to myself, that's not right. Doesn't make much sense. This is a lot to learn. I just went back out to the job site, took on the rest of that project the best I could. Didn't go well. It absolutely went into the tank, and it went into the tank fast, and it wasn't going to come out of it anytime soon. It never did. At the end of the project had lost 25%. Right after I turned out of my apprenticeship, I'd had a really good apprenticeship. I felt like I could have a successful career. Within 1 year, all of my confidence was shot. I was really second guessing some of the decisions I had made and also what was next. If I failed so badly right now, not only does the company know, the people I worked with know, these regions we all work in aren't that big. People know who's doing what projects a lot of times. And, it left me feeling pretty overwhelmed with the idea of what was next for me, I guess, or what the future would hold. They gave me a small project to run after that, something a little more manageable. I took the things I learned and then I just kept building from there. I had a lot of good people along the way, over these years. I went on to run more work and so on. And I'll talk more about that later. But I want to continue with my background since this is the first video. From the years of 2003 to 2016, there was some opportunity at the company I worked for. We had a small group of people who would actually do work on overseas on U.S. embassies and military bases. In 2003, I began working with them, and we would do switchgear changeouts. We would do electrical installations for remodels of these buildings, just office space and things like that. But I did that for 13 years. I would go out of the country for about 2 or 3 months at a time, come back, working home, go back out, once or twice, 3 times a year. I did that for 13 years. And overall, I've worked in 22 countries on 5 continents. And many of those countries I went to multiple times. During the time that I would come back, I would be back in town. I would just go work as a journeyman because I didn't want to take a foreman role if I knew I was going to be leaving town to go work on these other projects. When I was working as a journeyman, it became obvious to me that many people were having the same struggles that I had been having, and I watched it. I would see somebody, it might not be the same age, but they could be older, younger, whatever, but I would just notice, wow, this is really crazy. We're doing this to everybody. Wow, this is not good. And I noticed the other trades. I would see all the other trades the same way. I would interact with people for the general contractor. I'm like, that person doesn't even know how to run a meeting. That person doesn't even know how to talk to people. They're not going to get any any buy-in or whatever. There were so many things that I was noticing that we had all these skilled tradespeople around each other and so few people. There were some, but there were so few people who really knew how to lead. They just knew how to be the boss. And so that's, when I started thinking, well, I've learned a lot. Maybe I could just start writing some things down. I don't know what I'm going to do with the ideas, but I had tried to figure out, have I learned 5 things? Have I learned 50? Have I learned 500? What happened was I kept keeping notes, and it took me 4 years, but I wrote a book on construction leadership and what that transition feels like, as someone who is a, journey level at whatever skill they are, getting that opportunity to now manage a scope or a project and people. There's so much to know. I was able to publish that book. That book is also called Construction Leadership Success. If you're interested in checking it out, I'll put a description and link below. That book was out for 5 years. 2015, I got an email from a publisher who's out of the Chicago area. Their name is American Technical Publishers, and they've been in the business of technical books and educational curriculum for well over 100 years at that point. And they were looking to put out a construction leadership book of their own, and they needed someone to work with who could give them some real world stuff. So I signed a contract with them, and I started working with them on a new book in the early part of 2016. And we were able to publish that book mid 2016. Since then, it's been updated once. There's a second edition today. Again, there'll be a link in the description below if you'd like to check it out. That's kind of my background up to this point. I will tell you more in some future videos. I will tell you before we leave, what is my current job? What is my current role today? I do have a job. I have a full-time job, and I have a very, very interesting and fulfilling job. I work for one of the largest electrical contractors in the country, and I travel around almost every single week. I get on a plane and I fly to another project or another region, and I teach leadership. And I also teach Bluebeam. If you know what Bluebeam is, I've been using Bluebeam for about a decade. It's a very valuable piece of software. It's something that I happen to use a lot, and I see a lot of value. My goal is always, in the company that I work for, the goal is always that I'm reaching younger leaders, mid-level leaders, advanced leaders, and we're talking about these leadership strategies that I'm going to be talking about on this channel. So I'm going to keep, I want this channel to be something that's for me to do. This is an endeavor that is a personal goal of mine, is to help other people. And so I'm going to keep this channel and my work separate. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about my background, who I've worked for in the past and who I work for now, I am on LinkedIn and you can look that up. But I'm going to I like to keep my work projects and the things I do separate. I will be talking about it because I will be on the road and I interact with field leaders all the time. I'm going to be sharing some stories. They will be generic and no names and no locations, but things come up all the time. And I would like to share some of my thoughts about some of the things that are said to me, some of the things that um, where I see people struggling at that out in that field, and maybe sometimes upper management doesn't know. This happens across companies, it happens across trades. So I want to share some experiences along those lines. That's my background. I'm going to explain some of these things much more in the future. I appreciate you clicking on this video. This is my first one. I didn't mention this at the beginning. If you're still here, I'll say it now. This is my first time shooting a video of myself. I'm going to work really hard at getting better at this. I came up with essentially the idea to do this about 3 months ago. Since then, I've been studying how to set up a camera right, how to, frame a shot, how to just record, how to video edit. If you've noticed through this that I'm not polished, I don't know that I'll ever be polished. I'm a construction worker at heart, but I do want to share ideas and help others out who are in the same position I was in many times in my career, and sometimes still today. I still have a lot of things I'm learning along the way. If you have any interest in following me and seeing what's going on, please consider subscribing. I know it's just the first video, but I'm going to be putting out videos fairly frequently, so you'll see them come up more often. I'm going to talk through a little bit more about my background over the next couple of videos to do some more practice. But after that, I will be getting into some subjects to do with leadership. I hope you'll come back, and I appreciate you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.